Start recording. Go ahead.
Okay. Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are very helpful to parents all around the world, and they are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members who are not able to attend this meeting live can also watch. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Susan. We're so happy to have you here tonight.
Yes,
Thanks for having me.
So thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to quickly read your bio and then we'll get started. Susan Hannifin-MacNab, MSW, PPSC, is a social worker, educator, and author who holds a master's in social work, a bachelor's in education, and credentials as a teacher and a school social worker. In 2012, Susan's surfer-professor-bagpiper husband was killed suddenly, leaving her to pick up the pieces of her young family's life. Susan is the founder of Z Healing Toolbox, an organization that assists the bereaved in integrating authentic, practical, action-based tools into their lives while healing with intention. She facilitates conference workshops, professional development trainings, and keynote presentations internationally. Susan's 5-time award-winning book, A to Z Healing Toolbox, a practical guide for navigating grief and trauma with intention, is used by mental health practitioners and bereaved communities nationwide. And if people would like to learn more, go to www.atozhealingtoolbox.com. And without further ado, please welcome Susan Hannifin-MacNab.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Irene. It's so great to be here and to see some familiar faces and then to see some new faces as well. I am a huge believer in healing in community. So I was jumping at the chance to come and learn from you all. And hopefully something I say or share in my story will help you heal as well. So as Irene and Elizabeth mentioned, I am a social worker and an educator. That's what I was doing for 20 years. Happily, I had no intention of becoming a speaker or an author or a writer of any kind, actually. So I was working with children, youth, and families for 20 years. I had a husband named Brent, and he's the one who painted this picture behind me. Some people think I have wings. It's actually a woman from Hawaii holding anthuriums. So I married Brent, and he was a professor of international business. So that took us to Hawaii and Canada and Australia, where our son Jacob was born. When Jacob was about 5, we decided to make our way back to the mainland US and resettle here in San Diego. We were here for about a month when Brent went out for a drive in the local mountains and did not return. So for 2 weeks, we did not know where he was. We filed a missing person report and just were left to guess and be all the feelings that you might have when someone is missing. 2 weeks later, we learned that his vehicle had gone off into a really beautiful area, actually, kind of a mountainous area. And a nature photographer found the vehicle down there. So that is how I learned I was suddenly widowed with a 5-year-old in tow. We had been here for a month. So even though I grew up here in San Diego, we had been gone for 15 years. I had no job. I had no car. I was renting a condo. And thankfully, my parents were 5 miles away. But that was my rock bottom. Where do you start to crawl out of a hole like that? And I know we all have a story of getting information, getting news, and then trying to figure out how do we ever crawl out of this hole. So we deal with things in different ways. And I come from a military family. So I was raised by a father and a grandfather, and my brother is still active duty military. And these gentlemen are modern day warriors, pilots and submariners that have been in wars. So that was part of my DNA, I guess, to somehow figure out what I was going to do in the middle of massive grief, massive trauma that came with the 2 weeks of running around trying to figure out where Brent was. So what I really like to focus on is more of the then what did I do? And I slowly, like all of us, started collecting people or organizations and nonprofits, groups, anything and everything that could possibly help my son and I heal. And because I'm a linear thinker and I was a teacher before I was a social worker, I don't know if there are any teachers out there, but we like to be organized, right? So if you see on my shelf behind me, I've got lots of binders and everything has a label. So as I was pounding the pavement looking for resources in the San Diego community for my son and I started gathering papers. And I had so many from different therapists, different grief groups, different people I met, that I started putting these papers into a binder, some sort of order in the chaos of my life. And I eventually alphabetized that binder. I was working with animals as animal therapy. My son was in therapy with animals. And so letter A was animals. Wow, I couldn't believe how much my son was being helped by just being around a dog in his therapy room. That was too much for me to handle at the time. I didn't even have a fish, so that was out of the question, but I knew that was something that was helpful. Letter B became breath work. I had to learn how to breathe again because I couldn't. And this binder became a 26-page leaflet that I eventually brought to a conference for widowed people called Camp Widow, the greatest place I never wanted to be, kind of like helping parents heal, the greatest place you never thought you'd find yourself. And I presented this information to the grieving spouses, and they looked at me and said, well, where did you get this information? And I said, well, these are all the things that are helping me heal. I know about a lot of different therapies because I'm a social worker. I had to dig into a lot of different modalities for my son, and I knew a bit about child development. Those of you who know Tom Zuba know that he says life prepares us for life. And I do believe that my education and my social work background helped me try to make sense out of our situation. So eventually this 26-page leaflet became a book, the one that Irene talks about, and it's here. It's rainbow colors, so you can't miss it. And the tools are really practical tools that help us all heal. And do I have the ability to share my screen real quick so I can show everybody what the tools are?
Yes, you should have it. If you don't, then let
Okay,
me know. I think that
let me
everybody can share
see.
their screens.
Nope. So if you go to the top right corner of my box, there should be a
Okay.
little button with 3 dots.
Yes, I see that. Let me just make
If you
sure.
make me co-host, that might work. And if not, that's okay.
I did. Yes, I just did. It's done.
Awesome. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Mhm.
All right. So I just want to show everybody what the tools are to give you a sense. And then in the chat, if you see a tool that you're already using, go ahead and type it into the chat bar. Just curious what everyone's already using on their journey toward healing. This is the A to Z online toolbox that you can access anytime. There are a ton of resources here for you. It's just A to Z Healing Toolbox.com. And then you would click on the online toolbox to get you here. So these are the 26 healing tools. I'm not going to go through them in great detail, but you can click back here at any time and get lots of information. So here we have A for animals. If you have an animal that you can cuddle with, or even a fish that you can watch swim, that will help you in your healing. And I'm going to click here on letter A so you can see the why. I'm a big why person. Why do animals help humans? So I really wanted to see, hey, before I dive into any of these tools, why? Well, human physiology is positively altered in the presence of animals. Therapists, medical professionals, hospice workers, hospitals, and veteran recovery programs have introduced pets to provide comfort and healing to those living with grief and trauma. And then down here, there's some bullet points about how do animals promote healing. Well, for those of you who own animals, they can decrease feelings of loneliness and isolation, relieve our symptoms of anxiety and depression. They can really bump up our levels of oxytocin and dopamine, which are the happy hormones that we need, especially during times of grief. And animals can actually improve our overall heart health. So if you were to continue down here, you would find a bunch of resources about animals and how they might assist you, articles, booklets, books, and organizations. So that's kind of how the book is laid out as well. The book also includes single small steps you can take in each of these healing tool areas, and then stories from people, bereaved parents, bereaved spouses, who have donated stories in how they've utilized these tools in their own journey. So again, I'm not going to go through in detail each of these, but if you are using these tools currently, go ahead and throw that into the chat. So we've got animals, breath work, any type of therapy or counseling, doing your homework, which would be reading and gathering information and attending groups like this to understand your new world. In the next row, we have energy therapies. So that would be things like Reiki and healing touch, flowers and fragrance. That would include essential oils, aromatherapy, getting out with flowers, group support you're already doing right now, higher power help you're already doing right now because you're involved with this wonderful group. Letter I is imagery. This is utilizing the power of the imagination for healing purposes. Journaling in any way, written or pictorial, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Knowing your new environment, laughter, meditation, nutrition, organizing your supports, peer mentors. You may have peer mentors on this call with you right now. Quotes that inspire hope, right brain release, which is utilizing color, sound, music, imagery to access the creative side of the brain, which is often a side we need to use when we can't make sense of anything, because making sense of things is happening on the left side of our brain. Here we have old exercise, touch, and the last letters, utilizing nature, volunteering, Western and Eastern medicine, examining your positives, or otherwise known as gratitude, your self-care, and sleep or rest. I know I couldn't sleep for a long time, but I certainly could rest. So those are the letters. And now I just want to look at the chat and see who is using which letters already. All of them so far, somebody says. Awesome. Nature, everything but counseling. Perfect. So I wrote this book just to give everyone a sample of ideas. It's really a book, as Irene mentioned before the call, that you can open anywhere. You don't have to start on letter A and go to letter Z. You can open it up and you might wind up on letter J, which is journaling. So I think I'll talk about journaling for a minute, because I know for me, I had probably 2 therapists and a multitude of friends that said, if you would just start writing, just start journaling, that will help you so much. But nothing would come out. So for those of us who have trauma stories, grief stories, often we can't write and nothing will come out. So I wanted to just introduce you to another way to journal, and that is pictorial. So this is called an illustrated discovery journal. All you need is a blank artist sketchbook. You need a stack of magazines, and you need pens and scissors, and there's a glue stick somewhere in there. So instead of writing words, what you're going to do is just thumb through your magazines and rip out images that call to you. You don't even have to know why they call to you, because you're on the right side of your brain. You don't have to think. You just pull images and glue them in your illustrated discovery journal. And as time goes on, you will start to see some patterns that emerge. Or if you are in counseling or therapy of some kind, this is a great starting point to start to make words out of the pictures that you've collected over time. So this is just one tool that I like to talk to people about. And because I'm a teacher, I like to give practical tools. I don't want to just talk at you. I want you to be able to come away with this with some tools that you can use in your own life. So that's the illustrated discovery journal. That would be letter J. Another thing I wanted to show you, 2 things actually, and all you need for this is a straw. I happen to have 3 recyclable straws here. So if you have a straw near you, I will give you a minute to go collect it. And while you're doing that, I will just tell you a little bit about how I use straws with many of the groups that I work with. This is under letter B, which is breath work. And this particular type of breathing that calms the nervous system is called straw breathing. So all you would do is you would have your straw here, and you'd inhale through your nose and exhale through the straw. Now, when we exhale through this tiny hole, what are we going to be forced to do? See if somebody's going to throw that in the chat for me. I'll wait for that. We are going to be forced to breathe slower. And in order to get control of our nervous system, we need to slow down our breath. If any of you are practicing yoga, you know that the breath work is something that is utilized over and over again, and it's the center of us and something we have all the time. But when we are anxious, when we're grieving, when we're traumatized, sometimes it's impossible to get a handle on our breath. So one way to do that is by straw breathing. And I'll do this for you a couple times, and then you can do it on your own and get some recyclable straws and just keep them in your purse, your bag, your desk. It's great. I still use them. So we would inhale through the nose and exhale through the straw. And for those of you who have a straw right now, if you do this a couple times in a row, you can actually feel your body relax, because when we slow our breath, we slow our heart rate and our entire nervous system gets rebalanced. So this is one really easy way to help the nervous system calm. And like I said, I used to, and I still do, have straws in many places, because straw breathing is not just for those of us whose children have died or whose spouses have died. It's for just stress and anxiety in general. So at the conferences I used to go to live after a workshop, I'd see people walking around, even men walking around with a pink straw in their pocket, and they use that. So that's one handy tool. And while I have the straw, if you have your straw or you have a pen or pencil nearby, go ahead and grab it, because I'm going to show you a really easy way to get a hit of endorphins that we all need, especially when we're grieving or traumatized. So go ahead and put your straw or your pen or your pencil in between your teeth like this. Now keep it there. Somebody tell me, what am I forcing you to do right now? Yes, somebody in the chat put smile. I am forcing you to smile even though you may not want to. And smiling and laughing gives us a hit of endorphins. The endorphins that we get when we exercise, which is also why exercise is such a great tool. But if you're at work or you're writing notes, or at any time you have a pencil or a pen, just think about doing that for a couple of minutes. And you'll get some endorphins, which we all need. So that is straw breathing breath work. And then the other really simple breathing exercise I wanted to share with you is called vibrational breathing. And for those of you who have heard of a type of therapy called somatic experiencing, this vibrational breath work comes from Dr. Peter Levine and his theory of somatic experiencing. So Dr. Peter Levine was watching animals decades ago, and he realized that, hey, listen, when a rabbit is being chased by a coyote and the rabbit runs into a hollow log and is now safe, what does the rabbit do with all that trauma and tension? Anybody want to guess in the chat? Shake. Thank you, Vanna. Animals in the wild shake. They shake out the trauma. They shake out the stress. What do humans do? Do we shake that out? No, we have 2 weeks to grieve. We get 2 weeks off of work, and then we're done grieving in 365 days, right? That's all we get. So we jam our trauma in, we jam our experience in, and then we have all sorts of physical, emotional, spiritual challenges. So one way to release some of that trauma is to do vibrational breath work. And it's very simple. It's sort of like the straw breathing. You're just going to breathe in through your nose. And on the exhale, we're going to exhale the word VU, V-U. So I'm going to do it once, and you guys are all muted. So you can do it from home and give it a try. So we're going to inhale through the nose and exhale the word VU. Let's try it twice. And then I'd love to see how you feel after that. So here we go. Inhale through the nose. VU. One more time. So if anybody, I feel calmer after 2. Now you can do that 3 times, 4 times. I would do this in the car, in the shower, before bedtime. But what is happening in your body, if you can tell, is that you're vibrating. And a lot of that stress, anxiety is getting released. So that is another very easy way to help yourself when you're feeling stressed or prior to going into a situation that might give you more anxiety. So those are 2 different tools that you can use for breath work. Let me see what other, I'm looking at the time. Oh, I have a little more time. I could go on for an entire weekend on all of this stuff, but I want to give you as much as possible while we're here tonight. Imagery, let's talk about that for a minute. I did not realize the power of the imagination until I had a dead husband and a grieving son and a mess mom. And I was introduced to a woman who owns a company called Health Journeys. Her name is Bella Ruth Napperstack. I love that name. Bella Ruth Napperstack. She is, gosh, she's probably in her mid to late 70s now. She's a therapist, a social worker, and the queen of guided imagery. And I just wanted to share a little bit of what are some of the things on her, what has she created? So her website is called healthjourneys.com. If anyone wants to throw that in the chat for everybody, that would be great. Healthjourneys.com. She has a zillion guided imagery CDs on there and MP3s. This one is the 3 stages of healing trauma, 9 meditations for post-traumatic stress. And this has 3, this is a 3 CD pack. But this woman is brilliant and her stuff helped me so much. Here is one for anxiety and panic. Here is one for healing trauma. Here is one for easing grief. And the beautiful thing about guided imagery is you have to do nothing. You turn it on and you let it work its magic. So for 2 years at least, after Brent died, I put Jacob to bed. And then I would get in the bathtub full of essential oils, which I had never used before, but I know how powerful they are. So I would put those in the bath. And then I would turn on Bella Ruth Napperstack. She's got a very soothing voice. And I would just lay back and listen to one of her CDs. And I would cry, but I was in the bathtub. So, hey, it didn't matter. And crying is so healing anyway. but I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to work, but my imagination took over. So this is one other powerful tool that I would recommend. You can check out healthjourneys.com and play. I think you can play different snippets of some of her different audios, so you can just hear her voice and check out all the different offerings there. There are hundreds and hundreds of helpful healing tools, books and CDs and MP3s, and it's a great website. So that's guided imagery. And for those of you who may have still have teens or children at home with you, there's a meditation for teens and one for little guys as well. Good for grandchildren even. She's got great stuff. And let's see, I also, last but not least, because I do want to leave time for questions, laughter. That is letter L. And the first time somebody introduced laughter into my home after Brent died, I wanted to throw them out. But my trainer at the gym knew that I had a little kid at home, and she knew that that kid was very sad and needed a little laughter, because laughter bumps up our endorphin level. And I thought I'd never laugh again, but she brought in a couple things. One was this little toy called Laffy Laugh-A-Lot, where you'd push his button and he'd make a different laugh sound. The other thing she introduced us to is a series of books called Would You Rather? Would You Rather? There's a website, Would You Rather? There are hundreds and hundreds of crazy questions that you can ask yourself to make yourself laugh. You can ask your neighbor, your friend, or if you're in a group. So what I'm going to do is read a question. And if you're sitting next to someone, discuss or put it in the chat. Which one would you rather do? And hopefully I'll see some smiles on your faces. Okie doke, let's see. Would you rather have Yoda or Dumbledore as your personal bodyguard? Let's see in the chat. Yoda, oh, somebody says Yoda. Yoda or Dumbledore? Lots of Yoda over here. Oh my gosh, Yoda's the winner, I think. Okay, next question. Nobody says Dumbledore. Okay, would you rather grow up to be a rock star or an astronaut? Rock star or astronaut? Put it in the chat. Oh, look at all the rock stars. Oh, somebody says astronaut. Okay, all right. Would you rather be a matador or a professional snack tester? A matador or a professional snack tester? Neither. Somebody says neither. Snacks. Okay. All right. And lastly on this page, would you rather, you have to choose one, you can't say neither though. Would you rather be a belly button lint sculptor or a window washer who performs song and dance routines as if in a musical while you work? So you got to choose one, a belly button lint sculptor or a musical singing window washer. All right. Oh, only one. Can I wear gloves? Yes, Crystal, you can wear gloves. All right, last but not least, would you rather find buried treasure or ride on a UFO? Find buried treasure or ride on a UFO? Oh, okay. Look at all the treasure people. Awesome. Okay, great. Now, also on this same page, would you rather build in your backyard a water park or a skating rink? A water park or a skating rink in your backyard? A water park. Oh, look at all the water people. Nice. Excellent. Awesome. So I did see some smiles there. That means you got some endorphins. And again, this book, and there's a whole series called Would You Rather. You can also get on the website, Would You Rather? And there are questions for adults. There are questions for teens. There are questions for girlfriends. There are questions for everything under the sun. Some are radically repulsive, some are super funny, but it's just another way to boost our own endorphins, which is important to do when we are grieving and healing at the same time. So
That's
with
beautiful.
that,
Yes, so I want to just take over a little bit here. First of all, I just want to say that that whole idea of vibrating is such an amazing thing because I have been vibrating my whole life. I am constantly shaking. My leg is always shaking whenever I'm sitting at a table. Right now, my leg is shaking unless I can stop it. But I think that that's probably why, because it calms me down. And it's wonderful to know that and to be able to own it and tell myself that's probably why I'm healing so much, is because I shake my leg all the time. But also, another thing is that Teresa was asking earlier on, you were talking about how crying is so healing. She asked how to get oneself to cry. Do you have any good techniques for that? Is that something that you could tell us about?
I can speak to that. And I will say that one of the common grief reactions in some people is the inability to cry.
Yeah.
So if I were to share my screen again and show you an entire list of common grief reactions under behavioral, one of the common grief reactions in adults would be crying nonstop. One would be inability to cry. So whether you're crying like a faucet or whether you can't, it is normal. And sometimes it may take 12 years to cry. I actually spoke with a woman yesterday who was widowed 12 years ago, and she said, I just now started to cry. I couldn't do that before. She was running and running and running and running because it was so painful. And so 12 years later is when it was her time. And so if there's one thing I've learned about grief and trauma, it's that we all have our own unique story and our own unique journey to get where we're going. And it may not look like anyone else's, and that's normal and it's okay.
That's good to know. And I would love for you, because of the fact that we've had Casey on here and he's spoken to our group. And if people don't know who Casey Gaunt is, they can go back and look at the YouTube video of him. He is just amazing and he's written a beautiful book. But I would love for you to tell that story about, just to explain how, obviously this is incredible group therapy, as Joyce is saying, all of these wonderful things that you're throwing out to us, but also the fact that you are connected to our group and that we're all connected and we're all supposed to be connected the way that we connect. And could you just tell us about that?
Yes, I would love to talk about Casey. And then I'd actually love to tell a story about Bobby Morton in a second.
Yes, that would be great too, to have, yes.
And how I met Bobby. I mean, how did I meet Bobby? So, but I'll tell the Casey story first. I was mentioning to Irene and Elizabeth that hairdressers are really therapists, right? We're in the chair, they're right there. We can tell them whatever we need. So my therapist, hairdresser, carries stacks of my books in his salon. So he's got, 10 books at a time, and he keeps them hidden away. But when someone sits in his chair and they start talking about someone died in their family, their spouse, their child, their mother, whoever, he hands them my book. So he handed my book to a woman named Dr. Kathy, who is a physician in San Diego, and she teaches at UCSD and Children's Hospital. So Kathy has my book. She goes on her merry way. 2 weeks later, she's sitting on an airplane and happens to sit next to a man named Casey Gaunt. They start talking about Casey's son, Jimmy, and Kathy's plethora of people who are now with her in spirit. And Kathy says, you've got to meet this woman, Susan, because she's also in San Diego. So now Casey and I are wonderful friends. We talk about Brent and Jimmy all the time. Casey has another book coming out, so he let me proofread that, and we swap lives and stories and connections. And I do believe that we are all connected. I mean, really, from my hairdresser to a physician to Casey Gaunt. And then I want to mention how I met Bobby, and it's through our mutual friend Paula Stevens. I don't know if any of you were part of Crazy Good Grief a few years ago, but Paula started Crazy Good Grief and had a large Facebook page full of folks who were grieving the death of their child. And Paula was very integral in helping me get my book out into the world. And she said, you need stories from people who are healing? Come on to this Facebook page. And people volunteered to donate a story to the book about how they utilized certain tools in their healing. So I met Bobby through that group, and Sarah through that group, and Tom Zuba through that group. And my philosophy is that we all heal together in community. And when you heal, I heal. And when I heal, you heal.
That's beautiful. Oh my goodness. Well, Irene has a question for you. So I'm going to ask her to unmute and ask her question herself about the book.
Sure.
Okay.
There's a couple of things I think would be great if you would share in the book. I love R for right brain release. My sister has her master's in social work, and she's a trauma recovery specialist. And I've done a lot of work for trauma recovery because it is my belief that a lot of us suffer from post-traumatic stress, and it's part of the healing. But I think it would be great if you could talk a little bit to everyone about right brain release.
Sure. So when I went into my therapist office, I have had three. I've gone to three therapists, and the last one stuck with me because she is a trauma therapist, and her expertise is sand tray therapy. Has anyone heard of sand tray therapy or sand play therapy? I see Beth stands up, Bobby, yep, Vanna, yep, okay, quite a few of you. Back when I was doing my Master's of Social Work program 20 years ago, I was in an internship, and some woman waltzed in with all of these, what I thought were toys and symbols. And she said, who would like to be my guinea pig? And so, of course, being me, I said, I'll do it. And I sat in front of a tray of sand, and she produced hundreds of little trinkets from her suitcase. And I was to pick some trinkets and just place them in the sand. Big deal. Of course I can do that. So I did that. And then she proceeded to put a meaning. This woman did not know me at all, but because of the symbols I picked and because of where they were in the sand, it's like she knew my entire life. So there I'm bawling my eyes out 20 years ago. So I knew that because I needed other tools. I needed to find people who could have me get into that side of my brain. I'm usually very left brain, logic, reason, and order. Well, I'm sorry, when your husband falls off a cliff and is dead, that does not make sense in my world. So I had to get over here. The right side of the brain is where we can access more healing, because we're using color, imagery, sound, dance, maybe movement. Back here on my shelf, and I'm going to grab these real quick. I will show you some of these little symbols. If you ever have the opportunity in the future to work with a sand play therapist or a sand tray therapist, sand play or sand tray, I would do it. It's an amazing experience. But I mean, symbols like birdhouses and sharks or little people. And here's a football helmet. But these symbols, we don't put words to them, right? If you look around the room that you're in right now, I'm sure you could find one symbolic item. Why don't we do that? If there's a symbolic item, not a word, if something is around you that has meaning to you, just grab it and hold it. I see people coming back with things. So I see people holding, like Debbie is holding, it looks like a rosary. Okay, so just by looking at Debbie's symbol, I can put words to that. I have feelings about that. And there's no words involved, right? So it's symbols, it's color, it's imagery, and we're getting into the right side of our brain. I see Beth is holding, what are you holding there, Beth? Oh, is it a totem? I can't quite tell, but whatever, but it looks beautiful. I just can't.
It's a talking stick.
A talking stick. Okay, beautiful. Thanks. So all of these symbols I'm seeing they have meaning without word, right? I see Nancy's, Vanna's, Kelly's. I see lots of these symbols. Babette has a horse. So all of these are helpful because we don't have to use words. Sometimes we can't. Our life sometimes doesn't make sense, especially when we lose a child. I mean, that doesn't make sense in the world order that we used to have. And so if we can get into the right side of our brain with color, imagery, symbol, and at some point, if you ever can work with a sand play or sand tray therapist, that would be beneficial, even for 1 or 2 sessions. If you're a painter, grab your paints. If you like to color, there are a million coloring books for adults now that can help us move into a more meditative place and accelerate healing.
I was wondering, I know that you talked about the fact that you talked to Casey about Brent and Jimmy and the connections that you have. Do you have any stories about connecting with Brent? Anything about being able to know that he's here with you, which I'm sure that you have?
I do. I have lots of stories, and I keep Brent near me now, which is why I have his picture hanging here, and his surfboard is right behind me on the stairs. But for a long time, I didn't have any of his items around because I was so mad. I was livid. I was so angry at him for leaving me here with our 5-year-old. I was livid at God for letting this happen or orchestrating it. I mean, nothing made sense. So I was angry for a long time and just pushed everything away that was Brent related. Like photos were down. I was a hot mess. And that's okay, because that's where I was. Well, the first Christmas that he had died, so he died in July. So a few months later, we went to Virginia from San Diego to visit my brother. And I was in the deepest, darkest place, anger, sorrow, anguish. I mean, there was no light, or so I thought, but I felt no light, just dark. And I woke up right at that place, when you're about to wake up, but you're kind of in this relaxed state. And I was in my nephew's bed and everyone else was downstairs. And I got this, the only way I can explain it is a jolt of light and love and energy. And I was in a dark place. And then boom, there was a song that just flooded my body. Now, I was not listening to the radio. I was doing nothing. I was in such a dark place, but yet I'm feeling joy, and there's a song blaring through my body. And of course, it was my favorite song, and only Brent knew that song. Anybody a James Taylor fan?
I am.
Yeah.
Everybody
So
is.
the
He's not a
song
James
that's,
Taylor fan.
yeah, it goes, whenever I see your smiling face, I have to smile myself because I love you. You know that song.
Of
That's
course.
my favorite song.
Oh.
And so that's just blaring through me. And I thought, I am going crazy. Like, I literally am going crazy now. So I kind of pushed that aside, and I kept having what I now call song slams. And it was at the time of day when I was just about to wake up, because he knew I'd be calm and maybe invited in for 2 seconds. And I'd get boom, another song like She's a Bad Mamma Jamma. I mean, when do you hear that song ever again, right? So these were all songs from the 70s or 80s that Brent and I would listen to together. So I started to think, yeah, maybe I'm really not crazy, but I don't understand this world. Until I went on a retreat with a wonderful woman named Claire Bidwell Smith. She's a grief therapist and an author of some amazing books. Claire Bidwell Smith is her name. She held a retreat in Ojai, California, co-led by a medium named Fleur, and Fleur is in Los Angeles. So here's me trying anything and everything to get a handle and feel one iota better than I had been feeling. So my friend and I decided, all right, let's go check this out. So I spent 4 days with a marriage and family therapist and a medium, and it completely changed my view and my world of life, afterlife, and Brent being with me all the time. We went through a lot of exercises. I learned how to ask him to come near and then hear what he had to say. And of course, I don't have the skill set developed yet that Fleur and Suzanne Giesman have, but I know that it's there for me. And one day, when I am maybe done raising my child here, I can dive into that more. But I do know that Brent is with me all the time. And now I talk to him. I'm not angry anymore. It's like, all right, mister, help me out. What do I do here? Give me a song, give me something.
That's beautiful. And I just want to say that I've met Fleur and spent a day with her. She filmed here in Apache Junction. One of our parents, she was going to do a show that I guess didn't get picked up, but she was doing a pilot, and she is one of the nicest people that I've ever met. And she was amazing. She didn't know anything about this mom, and she was just saying everything about what had happened to her daughter and all of these different things that had happened in their lives. And it was amazing. It was absolutely beautiful. She's such a sweet girl too. She's very young. She's when I met her, I think she was only like 25 or something. I'm not sure how old she was when you got to see her.
Yes. If you look at her website, it's Fleur like the flower. And she's maybe 30, but she's the real deal. And she's very gifted and very honest and very true. And I learned a lot from her, and I still do. I signed up for her mailing list so I could just hear and see what she's up to. And I went to a show that she was doing in San Diego where she just had an audience full of people, and she would just say, okay, I have someone here who died when they were 15 or 60 or, and sure enough, somebody in the audience raises their hand and says, yeah, that's my mom. That's my sister. It's amazing. It's amazing. So if I didn't understand before, I definitely understand now that, that our people are here. They're here just spiritually, And that makes me feel a whole lot better to know that he's around.
That's amazing. And so Brent is helping you every step of the way. And I'm sure that because of the fact that you're friends with Tom Zuba, you probably talk with him about his wife and his daughter as well, and his son. I mean, I think that it's so wonderful that you have all of these people that you can talk to about their wonderful loved ones in spirit. And I'm just so grateful that you have shared all of these tools with us. I'm really excited about using a straw because I teach yoga, and I
Oh,
teach people how to breathe slowly, but I've never tried the straw before, and that's such a great idea. And that'll be an exciting tool, although I don't know how I'll incorporate it with practices, but it's a great idea. And I just want to make sure that we don't have any other questions before we leave, because I think that everybody's going to want to get your toolbox, which is so wonderful to have. We'll put it on our website as well so that you'll all know about it. I'm excited that we found out how you knew Bobby as well, and obviously Casey. And of course, we're all interconnected. All of us are drawn together by our loved ones in spirit. So I'm sure that Brent is friends with all of our kids as well. They're having a blast tonight as you're presenting, which is wonderful. And thank you so much for being here. So Irene, have you already unmuted everyone so that they can
Yes,
say?
they can unmute. And thank you,
Thank
Susan.
you,
What a
and
great hour. This has been wonderful.
Thank you,
you're
Susan.
so
and
welcome. Thanks for having
so
me.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Hey,
everybody.
Susan. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Susan.
you.
Thank
You're
you.
We'll see
welcome.
you
Good to see
tomorrow,
you.
everyone. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I
3
can't wait to
o'clock and
try the
7
tools.
o'clock.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well,
It's a
take
great
care.
book. Get the
Thank
book.
you.